My name is Christina Beard. I'm a animator and artist who's been working in the entertainment industry for about 7 years. And I'm here to teach you a little bit about keyframing and After Effects today. This is for beginners, people that don't really know After Effects very well. So if you do know a little bit more, maybe this tutorial isn't for you. But anyway, so let's get started. I have After Effects open here. And so what we're going to start with is we're going to create a composition. So go up to Composition, New Composition, and then I'm just going to name it Keyframe Tutorial. And so now we have our composition and we have this checkered background here. So what we're going to do next is we're going to create a solid so that we have kind of a background color here. I'm just going to make mine black. And after that, we're going to create a shape here, which is a vector-based shape. I'm just going to use a circle because it's easy. And hold down Shift and then left mouse click and drag out the shape that you want. So we have our circle here. All right, so the basics of keyframing in After Effects are as follows. So if you want to keyframe like any property of an object, so this is just like a basic shape, what we're going to go down into is, right now I'm just going to keyframe its position, so I'm going to move it from left to right. And so if you go to your layer here, your shape layer 1, click this arrow and then hit the transform arrow here, and then that's going to give you these properties. You have anchor point, position, scale, rotation, and opacity. So right now I'm just going to keyframe the position. So the way that you do that is that you have these stopwatches here, and these are just for setting a keyframe. So right now our composition is about 10 seconds long at 24 frames a second. It's a little bit too long for what we want, so I'm just going to make this a little bit smaller. Do like 3 seconds here. So that makes it a little bit more manageable because I'm not really going to do a whole lot with this guy. So, so if you press the stopwatch here in position at the first frame, so press that, and what you're going to get is you're going to get something called a linear keyframe. And linear keyframes are kind of the default keyframe in After Effects. They're just sort of a keyframe that just tells the computer, like, move this object from here to here. So they don't really have any special kind of properties. It's just sort of a robotic movement from left to right or up or down or whatever. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this object from here to here. And so the way that I do that is there's a couple ways to do it. Either, is it Control? Nope. If you hold down the Option key if you're using a Mac, or I'm trying to remember if it's the Command key on PC. I can't remember, but it's one of those. So if you're on a Mac, hold down the Option key and then left click, and then you can just move this circle kind of wherever you want, and it'll just kind of show you where you're going to place it. So I'm going to place it to about there, and that's about 8 frames or 7 frames after this began. So if I play this now, it'll move really quick. And so this just moves from left to right. And really it's not super interesting, but if you do have an animation where you do need something to just quickly move across the screen from like out of screen left to like screen right, then it's really good for that. But so that's a linear keyframe. They have this diamond shape. So whenever you see this, you can know that that is a linear keyframe. So if I want to change these to something else, what I can do is I can left click and drag, and that'll select my keyframes here. If I create a box over them, and then I'm going to right click over one of the keyframes and go to Keyframe Interpolation. So what this box will do is it'll show you, you'll get your temporal interpolation here, which is affects how a property changes over time in the timeline. So what that means is like basically like what it looks like in the timeline. So like how these look, and then the spatial interpolation. Let's see, you can get a couple different options here. So you have Bezier, which is a little bit different. Actually, it's not that different, to be honest. But these just show, like, all these do basically is show you, like, how these little dots here, which indicate where your shape is moving to from left to right, they just show how it shows up in here. So that's all that is. But if I really want to change these, you know, drag over, right click, and go to Keyframe Assistant, and you'll see that there are these different options that you get. What I'm going to do is I'm going to use the Easy Ease. And another way to use Easy Ease, one of the reasons I use it is because it smooths out the transition from left to right. You have like sort of a beginning and end, kind of like slow in, slow out motion. So if I play this now, it looks a lot smoother moving from left to right, a lot more realistic. It doesn't look as robotic as it did before with the linear keyframe. A shortcut for doing this, you know, if you just want to like left click and drag over these, is to do that and then hit F9. And that'll just do that same thing for you. It's just it's a hotkey I use all the time, honestly, if I need to use this kind of keyframe. So I'm just going to move this guy again, or I'm just going to have a hold keyframe here. So if I don't move it at all between these two frames, it'll just kind of hold its position. And then here I'm just going to like move it down here. So what this does is it kind of looks like a planet now. It's kind of sort of rotating around an axis. And as you see, you have this path here. And so one thing that's really cool about After Effects keyframing is that you can also mess with like the shape of your path. So if you need an object to follow a different kind of path, there's a few different ways to do that. One of the ways that I do that with keyframes is that I'll select the keyframe. So I did that here, and you can see you have like this blue square here, and then it has these two different handles. So if you're familiar with like Adobe Illustrator or some other vector program, which After Effects is also a part of, this is basically like a point in space, and if you drag, okay, so if you click, left mouse click, and then drag this, it's going to change the shape of that path. So if I just drag this around, say I want it to go like down here, and then I can left click and drag this around. I can left click and drag this different. Oh, let me see if I can get that there. Sometimes it's a little tricky to sort of get the thing that you want, but if I do this, and now I play it, the path is going to look different. So it takes like this different path now. And everything is eased in and eased out of where it was. So it kind of looks cool. It's like moving in space. So the other way that you can mess with that is with the graph editor. And the graph editor is a really useful tool for doing animation in After Effects. And the way that you get to the graph editor is it's right here. So this is your shortcut. So if we press this, you can see, and we press the position frame here. So what we can see is that we have our graph editor here. And honestly, this is a little bit of a mess. So if I want to like smooth this out or move this around, what I can do is I can grab these keys, and then as you see, it'll tell you like how quickly things are changing over time in the timeline above here. So as I'm moving these, you can see like up here, the interpolation of where these are in space is sort of like moving around. So yeah, if I do that, it'll just like very quickly ease in and ease out of like the position that it's in. What I can also do is I can select this and go to Keyframe Assistant again and do Easy Ease In, and then make this one also Easy Ease In. It's kind of hard to see, but what that's doing is it's just telling it I want it specifically to be ease in to these keyframes. So the graph editor is really useful if you want to have like different graphs that look really nice. one of the rules in 3D animation and also in 2D or anything that's sort of computer-based like this is that having like good graphs like this, these are not very good, but having like a smooth graph usually means that you're going to have really smooth, nice animation. It's not always, but if I made this so it was a little bit smoother, if the curves weren't like so like jilted or like kind of going off in a weird direction here, you can get sort of smoother, more pleasing animation that way. So that's another way to sort of mess with your keyframes if you don't like the timing, how they look. Graph editor is really useful. So I use it a lot. Yay. So another kind of keyframe that we can use is something called a hold keyframe. So hold keyframes are useful if you need something to like pop up in your scene, if you're doing like motion graphics, and you need like an object to just pop into space and you want to like eventually move it. I don't know, they're useful for that. So I'm just gonna make a new keyframe here. And another note is that whenever you change the interpolation of a keyframe, these are all easy ease keyframes. Any keyframe you make after this is going to also be interpolated that same way. So if you want this to be a hold keyframe after doing all this, left click and drag, right click over it and go to Keyframe Assistant, or go to toggle hold keyframe. So what that'll do is that this is a toggled keyframe. And so what that means is that there's two different things going on depending on like where in space and time this is. So on the right side, this is an easy ease frame, but on the left side, it's an easy ease frame, but on the right side over here, if I move this again, it's going to just toggle it to a hold keyframe. And hold keyframes are distinct and easy to figure out because they look like a square. So this is a toggle key, which is two different kinds of keyframes, sort of like the ease in, ease out portion are two different ways of interpolating it. So the ease in portion is a easy ease, and the ease out is a hold keyframe. And it's a little confusing at first, but if you get to know like the shape of your keyframes, it makes it easy. So if I play this now, so basically it's like we have this kind of smooth motion of this moving around, and then I have like a whole bunch of, I'm just gonna make a whole bunch of hold keyframes here to show you kind of what's cool about them. This is really good if you're, say, importing like a traditional animated project and you need to do something like animate masks or other kinds of things over your character, or if you need to animate special elements in a certain way to have like different properties, you can do that. So now if I play this, you can see that this just jumps all over the place because it's on hold. Yeah, that's just kind of a brief introduction to keyframing. There's a lot more to learn, and there's a lot of different ways to do this. But yeah, I hope this was a good introduction, and thank you for watching.